Hey there guitar players, welcome back to the lessons here in the Cutting Edge Guitar Academy. What we're going to be talking about in this session is our first teaching session for looking at musical vocabulary. So we're going to be doing this in the shape 1 minor pentatonic scale, which we looked at earlier on in the week, and where we started looking at some technical ideas that you can do here. I'm now going to give you 3 musical ideas that you can look at playing within this shape. As the lessons here are ongoing, one of the things that you'll absolutely be wanting to do is start developing your own vocabulary. So before we start looking at this, I want to talk about how you go about developing vocabulary. One of the things that you're doing in the early stages of lead guitar, you're looking at things like we talked about earlier in the week as doing a hammer-on, basic exercise like that, a pull-off, maybe some string bending. What we're going to talk about here is how we can take those hammer-ons, pull-offs, alternate picking things, whatever, and turn them into something that we can take across the shape that you can then turn into a lick, a line, a run, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I would suggest though is if you've got a little idea, you might be working on like taking the springboard. You do really want to start thinking for yourself, not just do the videos and look at the PDFs here and all of that. One of the things that I would suggest, if you've looked at my video going, okay, well if you look at that as just an exercise, fine, but if you add a bend exit and a bit of vibrato. Oops, do it better. That's the blueprint of a lick. You might have a little idea yourself. You've thought about maybe just doing hammer pull-off, hammer pull-off. Well, if you go, that's now a lick. You don't have to basically come up with a whole host of licks and lines and things that are maybe as extensive as the ones that I want to do with you here, but coming up with your own vocabulary, thinking for yourself, what am I going to say in the minor pentatonic scale in shape 1 is a very, very important thing to do. Now you can do that from just noodling around and see what comes out and then go, right, there'll be a lot of you here that go, and you're always telling us don't noodle around. Well, if you happen to be picking up your guitar and noodle something like that, well, actually there's a lick in there, isn't there? If you like, I've just added some exits to the noodling and all of a sudden it sounds like vocabulary. But what you want to do is then be like, right, these are the things that I play fairly regularly so that it sounds, as I say, like vocabulary. If I was to have a conversation with any of you, there'll be isms, things that you say, things that I'm like, oh, that sounds like the sort of thing that Adam would say. That's the sort of thing that Fraser would say. That's the sort of thing that Tim would say. Do you know what I mean? Like, so when you want to have your personality on your guitar, what are you going to say? Now, of course, there'll be some things that we nick from other people. But you have that in your speech, don't you? As a part of your phrases that you would use. Like, let's be honest, nobody was ever taught at school to say, that sounds cool. You pick that up from listening to other people. You're going to do that in your music in the same way. So developing your own vocabulary will come from the exercises that you're playing and then sticking exits on them, but also listening to other guitar players and go, that sounds cool, what's that? Get some tabs or try and work it out by ear or do whatever you're doing. There is work to do outside of this platform to help you get better. But what I will do here is I'll give you as much as I can to keep you going. But the thing with the guitar, it's a very, very big, in-depth subject. So you can't really over-practice or over-learn things. Anyway, let's get into the teaching for today. So we're going to look at 3 licks and concepts, and then what we'll do in the next video is we'll do a play along at a very reasonable tempo. So this first idea is a triplet based sequence that goes straight down shape 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. So what we're going to do here, oops, I've just scrolled that up by accident. What we're going to do here is basically take a tripleted framework straight through those the shape. Now, the guitar player that this should hopefully remind you of would be Jimmy Page. This is very much based on his style with Led Zeppelin. So if I hover above this part of the lick here, you'll see we've got 3 notes. Then we're going to come back to the 5th fret on the high E string, and then play 8, 5 again. That's your pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Once you've got that under your fingers, you then start that from the B string, then start it from the G string, D. That's going to take us all the way up to here, and then what we're going to do as our exit, we're going to play. So let's go all the way through all of that again. So the first fragment, pull off 8, 5, play 8 on the B string, back to E5, 8, 5, pull off on the B string, and then that sequence starts again but on the B string. Then you start it again from your G string, from the D string, and in the exit we're going to play 8 on the E string, and then just ascend through the scale. And then the exit, we've got that minor third back to the root. So again, all the way through, if I do it slowly so you can hear it demonstrated. And then also as well, make sure that you're actually adding the vibrato as the exit, okay? Excuse me. So that's our first example. The second example we're going to look at is an ascending version, okay? Now this one is going to be 16th note based. Anyone who is looking at this and thinking, where is this coming from? This is actually based on something that I heard Paul Gilbert do many years ago. The only thing that we're going to do here is we're not going to play it at Paul Gilbert's speed, because he is a rather terrifying fast electric lead guitar player, but we're going to play this at a very, very moderate tempo to get us going. So what we're doing here, we're playing through a sequence that's going to go. So it's a bit of like an up down. You're effectively moving through this shape in waves. So we go up to the D string, then back down through the A string, and finish at the E string. So that's our first sort of 2 beats. Now imagine that that's starting from my E string 5th fret, okay? Well, not imagine, it is. But I could play that as a repetition fragment. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to just start it on the 5th string and move it through the shape. So you play it from the E string, then play it from the A string, then play it from the D string, then play it from your G string. So every time we're just taking that fragment up through the shape, okay? Now the exit, we're going to skip across to our high E string, play that 5th fret there, and then exit with a tone wide bend at the 8th fret. Now what I'm also adding to add a musical quality to this is a bit of vibrato to the bend. So what you do to add vibrato to a bend it up, and then just slightly release it back down under the actual target pitch, so that it sort of fluctuates and you bend it back in. That is a very, very difficult skill to master, but of course with careful practice you will get it under your fingers. So when we're doing this with the play along, we're not going to be doing these very fast. We're going to do all of these at 80 beats per minute, okay? But what I would suggest outside of the video is just work with the PDF or I've also included the Guitar Pro file if you have Guitar Pro software and you want to use that to play along to it and get it under your fingers and go from there. So all the way through, this example should sound like this. Okie dokie. So finally, what we're going to talk about is a bending example. Okay, I don't know why, but my screen is just locked here, so we need to get that up on the screen. So the bending example. Bending is, with your minor pentatonic, bending is a big part of our phrasing and all the rest of it. So repetition, these sort of bend ideas are very, very important. Now what we're going to do in this third example, this is kind of like based on rock and roll. What we're going to do is this, it's a rock and blues guitar cliche. So you're going to bend the 7th fret on your G string. So bend the 7, play the 5th fret on the B, and 5th fret on the high A. So you bend up the note, then get your first finger in position to basically bar. Now you can bar this so that you hear strings clashing if you want to, or you can roll the finger out so that you get that muting effect. What I'm doing to get that muting, as I say, is I'll play that 5th fret note and then roll it across to the high E so that I'm not getting... So if I now... As I roll out, my first finger is actually muting the strings there. If you want to see more on that stuff, there's loads of things about rolling in the Advancing Guitarist course when I'm talking about legato or sweep picking and things like that. Also, as well, in my books, the High Intensity Guitar Technique series, there's loads of things about rolling in there as well. If you want to see more, or by all means, join a support call at some point and then ask me about it, and I'll be able to help you on a live call, etc. So, that's the first bit. We're immediately going to go into position then to do the 8-5 pull off on the B string. It's then repeated. So you've got 2 playthroughs of that before our exit, which is going to be... So you're just doing your pull offs down from the high E string, B string, G string, into the B string, G string, D string, and then finally slide up to the root note, okay? That little fragment on its own makes its own perfectly serviceable and good guitar lick. Okay, so that's a breakdown of all of the licks, guys. What I would do at this point, if I was you, practice them and get them under your fingers, and then join me in the next video for the play along session. Well, I say we're going to do that at 80 BPM, nothing too strenuous for you all. Okay guys, take care, see you in the next video, cheers.